Welcome back, brothers. I'm glad you made it to the second part of this installation video. Today we're going to mainly focus on installing the gauges and actually getting them in the car and the sensors that go along with those gauges. We did the wiring in the first video. If you need to see that video, I'll put it up in the corner so you guys can go right to it. Other than that, let's get right to it. How would you like to win this car? Yeah, boy! For the price of this sticker. All right, I got the battery reconnected. Now it's time to test these gauges out before we go any further. Ooh, the blue. I like that. It's pretty cool. So the way that I like to organize them is I went from, for me, is least or greatest to least, closest to the driver. Oil pressure I feel is the most important for obvious reasons. Well, if you guys don't know, because if there's no oil pressure, you got no motor. Oil temperature is second to me because you shouldn't be boosting your car or full boosting your car until oil pressure is up to the proper amount of oil pressure. Otherwise you could hurt the turbo. And then boost is definitely important, but not as important because once I get the tune right, the boost shouldn't over boost or under boost unless we have problems, but it's good to have that there so that you can see it on the fly. Ooh, and let's cycle through some of these colors. Red. It's like a lighter blue. I think that's supposed to be white. Yellow. Purple. It's not really purple. All these are like really blue tinty. And then that's blue again. So it's funny, you got like, oh, this mode changes between them all. That's pretty cool. Solid blue, green, red. I guess it's supposed to be light blue? I don't know. Then you got yellow, purple, definitely pretty blue, but definitely purple. White, I guess. It's not very white, it's got a lot of blue in it still. Although in the camera it looks white. And then I think this is the color shift. Yeah, oh, okay, so it just solidly changes from one to the next. And this one smoothly changes from each color. This is pretty cool, these guys are pretty nice. I mean, they're definitely the cheapest ones you can get on Amazon, but you know, I don't have a pro race car here. I don't have a ton of money to be spending on this car to be able to have the top of the line gauges. So I went with something simple and something that I feel like you guys would appreciate seeing installed and being able to view before you buy it. So there you go. All right, now that we got this baby installed, she's looking sweet in there, but we're not done yet. I just wanted to get a good visual of what it would look like with everything in there. It's still a rat's nest. But so I'm gonna start hooking up these gauges. First, I'm gonna start with the boost gauge. So what I have to do, or what I'm choosing to do, is take the original gauge off. I hate this thing. Who wants a millibar boost gauge anyway? Whatever, Subaru. So what I'm gonna do is take off the steering column cover here. There's one screw down in here that I'm gonna take out. Then this will come off, and then there's two screws on the bottom here that remove this gauge from here. And then behind this umbilical cord, or the sheathing, is just a boost hose that I'm gonna cut, and I'll just reroute that up into over there and get it onto there. And the boost gauge is super simple. Comes with plenty of hose to route wherever you're trying to go on the vehicle, and a T-fitting. So if you wanna jump into a current, an existing line, you can do so. But I think I'm just gonna, like I said, I'm gonna reroute this. I have another fitting here that I'm gonna use. It's just a straight piece to junction that hose and go over to the gauges here. So now that I got the screw out of the bottom here, it's the same thing with the clock, it's pushed together with clips. So basically I wanna get in here and pry it apart. I might need to have some heavier tools here. There we go. That comes off there. And then I go up with the other side. Now this one, you definitely want to put the steering wheel all the way down. Take the adjustment, put it down as far as you can. And that'll actually let you remove the bottom, because if it's not all the way down, this gets jammed up there. So the lever's down, you can pull it down and out, and then push this up. So once you have the bottom cover removed, you got to come up under here and remove this screw right here. This screw is what holds the top cover on. So if you don't remove that, you will probably end up yanking on it and then eventually break it off, and then it'll never go back together properly. So make sure you remove that bolt right there. You come in from the side and see it right here. And then the other one that mimics the one over here is kind of tucked up in here. There's this bracket here, or should I say this cover, that's right here, and the bolt there. But if you go a little bit past it, you see that one hiding up in there? That's the other bolt that you got to remove to get the cover off. Now make sure that your wheel is all the way down so that you can actually get it up off your column there. And what I'm going to do is, like I said, I'm just going to cut this hose right here, reroute it. So let me do that right now. And then the 2 screws you can see under here, might be able to see under here. 2 screws right under there. I'll take that off so that this gauge no longer sits here. Now, if you're doing the same thing that I'm doing, and you're actually gonna take this panel, these off, you have to get this panel completely out, but these studs here are too long to actually get it out. So what I'm gonna have to do is take this bezel off with these 2 screws here, and then it pops out. Now you see that I already have a different bezel here that I plan on doing air fuel here. I don't know what gauge I'm gonna put in here yet, but I like the spot that it's at. So I bought this already. We'll show that in a different video. But what I'm gonna do is these wires that are run for the lights for this gauge, I'm gonna reuse them for these gauges up here. So I'm gonna remove these so I can get this out, screw this off, and reroute. Okay, so I got the hose plugged into the boost gauge, and I still got it raveled up. So what I'm gonna do is unravel it and start throwing it down to the hole, and I'm gonna have to get up under the dash. It's gonna be hard to film, but basically I'm gonna shine this light up in the top, and then I'm gonna get my head under there and see where the light is and keep feeding it, and hopefully I'll see it and be able to grab it and pull it down, and then just route it in with my T-junction here, my little junction that I got, and throw this up under there and tuck it up nice where it's out of the way. Okay, so I got the hose plugged into the boost gauge, and I still got it raveled up. So what I'm gonna do is unravel it and start throwing it down to the hole, and I'm gonna have to get up under the dash. It's gonna be hard to film, but basically I'm gonna shine this light up in the top, and then I'm gonna get my head under there and see where the light is and keep feeding it, and hopefully I'll see it and be able to grab it and pull it down, and then just route it in with my T-junction here, my little junction that I got, and throw this up under there and tuck it up nice where it's out of the way. All right, I'm gonna do my best to show you what I did here. So this hose is actually the original hose. I didn't use any extra hose that came with the kit. I cut it off. You saw where I cut it off. It was pretty close to the gauge. If you look at the gauge, I cut it off pretty close. And there was enough line under here to where I could actually reroute it and see if you can see the hose. It's really hard to see under dash, so I can't show you that. But basically what I did is cut the zip tie, because it was tied to a couple wires down there. Cut that zip tie and then rerouted it the best I could. And while I was sitting under there, I shined a light up here and just kept feeding the hose towards the light. Just go towards the light, Betty! And then it was out back here when I found it up here. Once I got fished enough through where I felt like I could grab it, then I found it right here. Don't have to cut any more, or you could tidy it up if you want and cut it a little shorter. But what's even nicer is that it's a little smaller than the hose that comes with it, so you don't even need to put a clamp on it. It's super tight on there, so it'll definitely hold enough pressure unless you're running like over 30 pounds, which most of you guys running these gauges most likely will not be doing that. And so that does it for the boost gauge. We are all done with that gauge. Now it's time to put it up on the lift and get down and do the other gauges down on the bottom, all the oil stuff, temperature and pressure. So let's get after it. So while I'm up here, I'm gonna grab those other wiring harnesses. This one, by the size of it, I'm gonna wanna feed this through the firewall from the engine bay. It's gonna be a little tough because the side that I wanna do it on is driver's side, because if I were to do passenger side, it's really simple to see. You can go off of here, and there's even a hole already in this you can see from someone who had this before. But I don't like it because the turbo's here, there's a lot of exhaust right here, and it's not a very clean way to run the wires back to here. So the oil pressure, the oil sensors are gonna be right here, and it'll be less it'll be away from the heat better if I go from here and go in this direction and then go into the grommet that's right under the brake booster. Assuming I'll probably be able to save pretty good from the bottom, we're gonna get it up and check it out. Yo, and just for your guys' reference, I've done this about 3 times on different cars, and it always gets me every time. When you're doing work on your steering column like we were just doing with the boost cage, every time, I swear it happens. I hit the park lights, I don't notice it, and then I notice my lights are on. And I'm like, why are my lights on? What did I do? The front lights aren't on. What the hell? Why don't the lights turn off? Did I short something out? Is the switch still on? No, you just hit your park lights. Make sure they're off, guys. So what I figured I'd do is pull the oil filter down and actually show you what I did, so it's a little bit easier for you guys to understand, so you're not going off of theory in here. So what I did is take the oil filter off, and so this piece, the sandwich holds in there or sits up there, and then this piece threads into the middle. I'm about to get the socket. I'll tell you what size it is. And it's just a little tough to get this tight and staying in the right center. So I'll show you the trick to get it to stay on there. Okay, well, I don't have a 26, and 1 1/16 is pretty much the same size as the 27. So I'm just gonna use a 27. It's gonna do what we want here. So what I'm gonna do is obviously get a ratchet that fits this. This is a half drive. And what I'm gonna do as well is take my super long screwdriver, and you gotta have this plug in here already, because you're gonna need to pin it so that it doesn't twist on you, because when you go to tighten this up, the sandwich is gonna wanna twist around, but you gotta keep it in this direction so it's facing the right way and this doesn't hit the header, because it's really close. It's actually touching right now. So what I'm gonna do is push this up here and then pry off the block here. And you see how I'm already twisting it back? Yeah, see? So I want it maybe not that far. And then go in the other direction, you can pin it up in that little groove there and pry it. So I'm gonna get it in a nice sweet spot where it's not touching, right there. And then as I tighten, I'm gonna hold it here so that I can get it nice and tight. And actually what I use for my second time around here will be better for you is a super long extension that you can pin up against that drain plug or the oil plug, and then pin it right up against the frame there. So you're basically holding this while you're holding the extension of the ratchet and then going around with your right hand. And you get it super tight to where it's questionable, because you do not want that thing moving on you. So now I've got my sensors here, I'm gonna thread them in. This one already comes with pipe dope on it, so I'm just gonna go after this one. And you know, it depends which one you wanna do on which side. I don't really care. I think I'm gonna do this one over here since plastic. It'll be a little bit further away from the exhaust. And then this one doesn't have any pipe tape, so I'm gonna put a little bit on that before I thread it in the rest of the way, or at all, and then we'll start wiring. All right, we got both sensors in there. They are nice and tight. I snugged them up very tight. I'm gonna get this oil filter in there, so at least now, if I wanted to, I could drive the car. I would definitely wanna wire this up or tuck it somewhere if I was gonna drive it, but I'll get this filter on, and then from here, the boot that I want to go through, you see where that sub wire is going through. It'll probably be easier for me to go from inside the car out, although the only thing that I don't want to do is just because the plug, I don't have it down here, it's up on the car right now. The plug's so big coming from this direction, so what I'd rather do is use the smaller plug and go in so I don't have to cut so big of a hole in the boot to get in there, but I'm gonna do what I have to do. And the only thing that's not provided in this kit is a wire or enough wire to actually go up into the car with the temperature gauge. They give you the clips and the crimps so that you can connect it really nicely, but they don't give you any wire to actually get up there. So that's the only thing that I'm gonna have to have, which I do have some wire here, but that's the only thing that I have to add to this kit to actually complete it and make everything work. So I'm gonna get some wire and get some crimps. Well, I have the one here, but then I'm gonna have to get a different crimp up in the car to the gauges. Okay, so my decision here is to go through the floor first because of the fact that I will not be able to see that grommet and that hole down under the car or under the booster. So what I did is I took the grommet out and I cut a slice in it so I could get it off the wires that were going through it. So it'll be easier to go back through and it'll really create enough of a seal once it's back in there. So it's completely out and completely open, so really easy. And it makes it nice and simple for me to be able to throw the plug in for the oil pressure. I believe that's, yeah, that's oil pressure. And so I'm gonna toss that in, stuff it a bunch so that I'll be able to see it out there, and then run it down to the sensor, and then that'll be done. Literally fish it the same way up, same place where the boost reference was, so not too difficult. Got my Harbor Freight wire over here, and I'm gonna take a length of that, well, two, because I got to do one ground, which I can find on the car somewhere, and then the other one I have to run to the green wire on the gauge so it actually works properly. So I'm gonna take a gauge that's similar to the one on the car and go after it that way. These clips are the ones that come with the kit, but I really don't like these. They're kind of a pain to crimp, and I feel like they're gonna slide out, and it's just gonna cause a bunch of electrical issues and dropouts on the sensor. So what I'm doing is putting regular crimps on it. It's gonna be in the weather, so I do have to be aware of that. These ones are really nice. I get these off of Amazon. I'll put them in the description. They're heat shrink, so they'll be waterproof. So once you crimp them on, then you just put some heat. You could use a lighter, but I like to use a heat gun because then it doesn't burn it and it keeps it more consistent all the way around the wire to actually shrink it to the wire. So I'm gonna put that on, and then I'm gonna feed it through the hole like the other wire, and then wire it that way. All right, so I got it figured out as far as how it's wired now. So I still gotta put my ground on, but what I'm gonna do is take this ground and put it right up here where the bolt comes in onto the block for the water hose that goes over to the cooler here. So I'm gonna use that for my ground. I just need a little wire that's up top in the car right now. And then for the rest of it, these go, and you can follow it through the frame, and there's enough room to get my fingers in here to fish it through. And then if we follow it back to the other side here, it comes right out of the frame here into the front of the transmission, runs up along right on the base of the steering column, or the steering rack here. You can see my zip tie here kinda. I've zip tied the wires to it because obviously you have the axle and the steering shaft that are both rotating, and you don't want it near either one of those. And then from this base of the steering rack, you see that red zip tie there? Those two wires, they run all the way to the front, so it keeps it far away from the steering. And then I run it back over towards the firewall into that hole in the firewall to go into the base. So then that's pretty much how that is. And we got that wired. Now all we gotta do is go back up top and plug those back into the gauges, and then we can snap that thing back down and call it a night. We're officially done up here. I got the green wire wired to my brown. What I did is I tied this wire and the connector for the pressure gauge together with a little zip tie, and then fed them up together so I didn't have to do it individually. Bless me. And so now got that plugged in, that one was easy, and then got it wired. Still gotta do the ground on the bottom, but that's gonna be quick. I'll show you that when it's done. Now what I'm gonna do is just stuff this rat's nest back in its hole, and this. Now what I want to do is just fit it in here, see where it sits the best, because I obviously don't want to commit right away. I want to find out where it sits nicely, and because it kind of does this surfboard thing, or skateboard, whatever you want to call it, it dips. So that looks the best. So it's going to be tough to get that. What I'm going to do, I think, is go in the back first, kind of set that in, and then come down with the front. I don't know, it's gonna be luck of the draw. We're just gonna send it, boys. Let's see what happens. All right, here we go. Got the tape off. Gonna stuff it all down in there. And then here we go. We got one chance, boys. Either that or we're just gonna scrap the project, throw the whole car out, okay? Right. We are in there like swimwear. Yeah, it's definitely coming up. It's not really sitting nice. But for now, we're gonna leave it and go finish this job so we can actually get this done. The final piece has been installed. All the way through here, right behind that water line bracket, like I said. And what I did is made it short enough so that I could tuck it up here, and I bent that just a little bit so that it would purposely go behind this little piece so it'd stay away from the exhaust. And it's just short enough so where it doesn't have enough to get turbulence, and well, I guess I could if it really wanted to, but still it actually can't, so that's the whole point. Stick it up in there, leave it go, we're good to go. So now, let's get this thing down, let's get this thing started and check everything out, make sure it works. And one button-up thing I forgot is these wires here for the lights for the gauge, the original boost gauge. It's not like exposed, but I still don't want it dangling around in case it touches something. So what I do is I take electrical tape, I take a little square of it, and I put it down on the one side, like so, and then I fold it over top so the electrical tape will stick to itself, and then I'm just gonna stuff them both back in there. All right, now that it's time to check them, first I'm gonna do is just turn the ignition on, and if they are wired correctly and everything's plugged in properly, everything should read 0, because if you noticed before they were plugged in, everything was reading full, except for the boost gauge was reading 0, I don't know why, but both the pressure and temperature sensor for the oil were reading maximum values, and now they're reading 0. So we know we're good there, and we're ready to make a right turn, so let me turn that off, because we're gonna go straight this time. Boost is reading 0, 0, 0, so that's a good sign. So reading 0s across the board. Everything's on, sounds good. Battery's tight. Now it's time to start this puppy. Got plenty of oil pressure. It's actually way higher than I expect to see. Oil temperature, of course we're not gonna see anything for a little while. It's pretty cold, it's probably like 50 degrees in the shop here. Boost gauge. Move it a little bit, I'm gonna let it warm up first. And just check it as we go. And of course, we wanna make sure that our sandwich plate and all of our sensors are nice and tight so it's not leaking any oil. So let's check that out. Looking dry under here. And last but not least, don't forget to put your grommet on the firewall where your wires came from so you don't smell all that burning oil like you Subaru guys always have. Well, I'm acting like I'm excluding myself. I'm definitely one of them. It smells a little bit, but not as bad as I've smelled other ones. All right, well that's gonna wrap it up for this one, brothers. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it gave you all the information that you're looking for and help to install these gauges, and also maybe to help you make a decision on whether you wanted them or not. And always feel free to ask questions in the comments. I always enjoy answering them as best that I can. Like, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you on the next one.